Trustee Gately,
Here.
Trustee Lowry,
Here.
and Trustee Martinez.
Here.
Are there any audience comments?
No, Mayor Berman, I do not see any.
Trustee comments? Discussion. Mr. Bosco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 is the annual village meeting schedule that we have to publish annually. We put them out by January. In front of you is the schedule for all the village board and committee of the whole meetings. As you know, our 2 standing committees of operations and services also meet on those same nights, so they'd be subject to the same holidays. And also our plan commission meetings in front of you. If you notice in the chart that we provided, there are 2 instances where a village board meeting falls on a holiday next year, in which right now we're not scheduling a board meeting, and that would be we fall on the 5th of July, which is the day that we would legally be celebrating the 4th of July, and also the first meeting of September, which is Labor Day. There are no plan commission meetings that have conflicts. If there are no issues with the schedule as proposed, we would simply bring it back to the village board agenda for approval.
Very good. And item 2, Mr. Bosco.
Item number 2 on the agenda is our boundary line agreement with the city of Aurora. As I'm going to do a very quick overview. As the board remembers, we recently updated our boundary line agreements for 20 years with both the village of Sugar Grove and the city of Batavia. Aurora's was due to expire last year. We signed a 1-year extension with Aurora in order to discuss what we're calling a flex area. That is something that Mike Toth will go over in his presentation. In the meantime, this is the first step in the process after a long negotiation going back and forth with the city of Aurora. Should the board move forward with this, the next step would be to take it to a public hearing and then approval at a village board meeting. The 20-year agreement that was extended by a year last year is due to expire at the end of this year. And with that, Mike Toth is going to discuss this.
Thanks, Steve. I think you pretty much summarized most of what I was going to say tonight. We all know the city of Aurora is bound to the south and to the east of us, and we're looking to secure our boundary lines with the adjacent communities as part of the Responsible Growth Initiative and the comprehensive plan. So the last one as we're working on right now would be the city of Aurora, which is set to expire in December of this year per the 1-year extension that we have. We're looking at entering a new 20-year term with the city of Aurora. As the attached map will illustrate, the purple line denotes the boundary line proposed with the city of Aurora, which is primarily status quo. We're looking to obtain that. The difference being is, as Steve mentioned, the flex area, which is about 71 acres on the western portion of Hart Road, which is currently the Marmion piece. Marmion is in contiguous ownership of both properties. So, originally the city of Aurora had indicated a desire to maintain those properties in the Aurora to maintain consistency with the applicable laws regarding stormwater and municipal ordinances, and also to have a unified campus. So that was a point of discussion that I believe we mentioned at one point with the board. You can see here the numbers associated with each tract of land there denotes the acreage of each piece. And in the draft of the boundary agreement, there are there's a table in there that kind of denotes the land use for each of those separate parcels and how they would pertain to the flex area. So meaning the first person to annex it would be, if it was the village of North Aurora, they'd be subject to our ordinances. The way this reads, if Aurora were to actually annex the property in, there would be some additional conditions in there. If the properties are zoned, and again, they're laid out in that table, so the areas that are above the red where it says 2.5 would all be residential for the most part. And where it says 10, that would be a property where they would have some abilities to do some residential townhomes. For the most part, though, those homes adjacent to North Aurora would all be single family. And in the event that they would develop a single family, there would be required 50-foot setback for the rear yard or any setback bordering that line there with the North Aurora neighborhood, and then applicable stormwater management easements as well. The properties off of Butterfield, which are located at the northwest corner of Butterfield and Hart Road in this case, they consist primarily of land that would be still in the flex area that would be primarily commercial in nature. Those 4 tracts of land there, it's kind of squeezed in that smaller lot, but those would all have some sort of residential, or excuse me, some sort of general commercial. And if it were to go to either community, even if it was Aurora, they would still be subject to North Aurora B2 permitted uses. So we've worked with the city to come to this point to say, this is a flex area, which is similar to what we've done with the city of Batavia regarding the northwest portion of territory from North Aurora between both the municipalities. This is kind of that same idea. The first one to annex them would come in under their jurisdiction. For us, it would just be per our zoning laws. But if the Aurora were to come in, they would be subject to the terms of the boundary line agreement, which are included in the packet tonight as part of that draft agreement. So that's the general crux of it. Again, we're looking to secure this boundary line agreement as part of a responsible growth, but basically making sure that we're securing some of our land throughout all of our entirety of the boundary line. We do have some large tracts of land located on the west side of town that we're looking to maintain that status quo boundary line with, and just basically having that relationship with the city of Aurora for another 20 years. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Good to me.
Thank you. We would bring it back. We have to advertise for the public hearing. The city of Aurora is currently working on the updated legal description of the boundary line and the flex area. So once we have that, we will have to go ahead and put that as a public notice for a future board approval.
Hey, Mike, was that some of the land west of Hart Road? Was that the one farm there on Butterfield there that's adjacent to Pine Creek? I guess I can't think of the owner's name.
Well, yeah, are you talking about the Stokes property?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So Marmion owns that now?
No, Marmion
Or is
does
that-
not own that piece. Marmion owns the tracts of land that are located on the
The green?
they own the green portion, but also too on the west side of Hart Road, those tracts of land.
171.
Yeah.
That's
So that 1.71 acres or whatever that is, that's Stokes?
both of them.
Yeah. But
327 and 171.
and they want to be in Aurora?
Well, they're not, no.
No, they would just be the agreement is between the boundary is between the municipalities.
Okay.
They at this point in time could basically exercise rights to discuss annexation with both municipalities.
Why would they jump over and take them two pieces, a 3.27, 171? It seems what makes more sense. They went straight down to Butterfield. Why would they cut over and want that?
Are you referring to the city of Aurora?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were just the conversations that we had with them in regard to, I think they try to work on entryway areas to the city, although it's a little, basically they would have both east and west of Hart Road in that case, with an entry area being the Stokes property.
Yeah, but trustee Gosino is saying they probably should have been eliminated from that because they had nothing to do with the Marmion.
Right. That's my thought.
Yeah.
And it's so close
They're
to,
not part of Marmion. They're part of no man's land. And, we shouldn't even give Marmion a thought of annexing them. Not that we want to at this point in time.
right. Interesting. Okay.
Should we exclude them?
So if you look at the parcel map, the way it's shown on here, the 39.4 and the 2.5, that's actually all ownership of Marmion. The Stokes, I believe, is the 3.27 and 1.71.
Right. Yes.
So yeah,
Why even have Stokes involved in that?
Right. That's what I wonder, why they just didn't come straight down to Butterfield off that
It has
piece. And,
nothing to do. They don't own it.
right.
My assumption would be that if the city of Aurora or Marmion ever developed that area and it went into Aurora, that they would want the commercial to be basically aesthetically the same, so they could develop it all at one time.
yeah, continuity, being a state right of way, they could have shared access off of Butterfield Road, which can sometimes be tricky working through IDOT. So I'm assuming it'd be more of an assemblage opportunity. But again, it isn't a flex area. It's not saying it would go to Aurora, but it's just that area of town that could be open to either municipality.
As the village might remember, the board, last time we discussed this, Aurora was at one point looking to ask us to basically de-annex our future rights to them for that whole area. The flex area was actually a compromise that they met with us on. In theory, they could have just chosen not to even have a flex area in there and not agree to a boundary line agreement at all. In that case, it would have been open to anybody. But the staff has always been told that the priority has always been to make sure that we tighten our borders the best we can to protect our future growth.
Well, we could have done the same thing. Any other discussion?
Well, I'm just curious how that's protecting our future growth when they're going right up to the back of our houses. I mean, I don't, what's in it for us? I hate to say it that way, but I don't, can they go all the way up to Pine Creek? I mean, so they do that,
No, the hashed areas are what dictate what's currently unincorporated. Obviously, anything that's shown in that gray area is within municipal.
Yes, I know. I'm
North
just being
Aurora.
facetious, but I just, when we're talking about securing our borders, what are we securing on this side? Nothing, right? They're going all the way up to our back of our homes, right?
Well,
So-
it's a flex. And we're saying, why is it flex, right?
Well, the reason we're doing it is because our agreement is due to expire. And in theory, Aurora doesn't have to sign an agreement with us anywhere on the west side of town or the east side of town. And it's basically an agreement between two municipalities. It's not forced. We don't have to enter an agreement. They don't have to enter an agreement with us.
They weren't interested in including that.
Hey, what?
They were not interested in including Stokes property.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I don't,
Yeah.
if the city of Aurora decides not to sign an agreement, they don't get any more right to that property than they would under the agreement. So why not just exclude it from and keep it in North Aurora?
Yeah, we've been negotiating this boundary line agreement for a couple of years now, and it's imperative to secure what's on the west side of town. I understand there's some interest in this area, but again, the emphasis being the west side of town at this case, because Steve's right, they don't have to enter an agreement with us, leaving us exposed on the western portion of town.
So that's what you're saying then, is this is kind of a given, and that's part of negotiating on the other side?
Well, I think what he's saying is we've gotten to this point. Why do we want to take it any further? And we've gotten to this. We've gotten to an agreement with them. And we're not giving it to them. It's a flex area. Either one of us can. Why don't we just go ahead with what we've got and forget about it?
It's a tough situation because when we brought this to the board last year, when we were bringing it forward, at that time, Aurora didn't want, they wanted to leave that area out, if I remember correctly, completely out on the east side, meaning it would be up for grabs for anybody. And we don't know, but for sure, but we've had indications that Marmion would look to annex to Aurora if they chose to annex anywhere. So with that being in mind, this actually protects us, because if Marmion does choose to ever annex to Aurora, as they apparently have indicated, that could be something in the future. This gives us the protection that if they go into that area, there's already restrictions and zoning and whatnot that we would agree to.
Right.
And I think obviously being that Marmion's already located on the east side, there was the idea of having them cohesive on both sides because their stormwater is connected. And for what I've been gathering with discussions with the city of Aurora is that they have more stringent stormwater ordinances than what the county would have. So that would ensure protection and ensure stormwater compatibility on both sides of the city. And again, that's if it were to go into Aurora, we would still have the opportunity to annex those properties.
Yeah.
So what you're saying though, this is part of the give and take on the whole deal.
Yeah, and the ability to get this secured.
Right, I got you. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that sounds fine.
Another 20 years. I wish that prior to the last 20 years, we'd done something better, but. All right, anything else to come before us? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening. Watch the Bears.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Hi, John.
Good night, John Boy.